You know, in a club, it's all about capturing a moment.
There's been a succession of hot spots, places people go to see and to be seen.
It was an experience, touching like pretty much all of your senses.
From Channel 5 News in New York, this is the 10 o'clock news.
Right now, the premier playpen for the so-called beautiful people seems to be Studio 54.
I remember growing up in Brooklyn and hearing about Studio 54. We would watch it on TV. We would read about it in the newspapers. All these fabulous people going to this club that was so hard to get into.
It's chic right now, but will it last? Or will it fade like so many of the other clubs?
In the 30s and 40s, it was the Stork Club on 53rd Street. Back then, the most glamorous, most successful, most famous, most everything. It was a social gold mine, the product of the entrepreneurial mind of the lad from Oklahoma, Sherman Billingsley. He was always there, guiding the movements of his 200 employees and making decisions as to who would get in and who would not. Like Billingsley, Rubell spends most of his waking hours at his disco, much of the time scanning the sea of faces on the sidewalk, hand-picking the people who will make the party inside, in Rubell's words, a special mix that will allow fun for all and boredom for none.
It's pretty easy to determine just by looking and talking for a couple of seconds with somebody what their purpose is coming here.
4,000 people passed in and out of 54 last Thursday night for 54's second birthday party.
The Emporium here, I think, is a great addition, really, as far as New York is concerned, and as far as to the just the social environment of New York.
Disco is the thing today, and Studio 54 is the national anthem, the national disco scene all over the country.
Where does one find Steve Rubell when he's not at his disco? This afternoon, he was brunching at Andy Warhol's factory, where Warhol turns out dozens of silk-screened portraits, which, if done on commission, command $25,000 each. More pop capitalism. There, Rubell was breaking bread with folks like Jerry Hall, Rolling Stone Mick Jagger's current love, and others who make Studio 54 their regular hangout.
Steve's the one that makes it really exciting.
How? What is it about Rubell that does it?
Well, it's, well, he's so good to the people who, you know, that go there. They can have a good time without being bothered by anybody.
Do you think it'll last? New York has a way of having hot spots that go cold.
Oh, yeah, it will last because Steve goes to jail for people he believes in.
I think the reason why Channel 5 had such great access inside Studio 54 was because the owners watched Channel 5 News.
Things look a little different these days at Studio 54 on the outside and the inside. They have for the past 2 weeks. Steve Rubell, the owner of Studio 54, is going to give you some idea of what's happening inside.
What we're trying to do is enhance the integrity much further than it was. We want to completely restore it. What we did is we brought people over from London and from Europe to do this little sculpture work that you see up there, and this is all painted silver, and this is all completely now 100% restored to the way it was in the 1920s.
At the peak of popularity, the feds raided Studio 54, carting off books, financial records, and cocaine. Channel 5 cameras were there for the takedown.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Alan Kaufman would not comment when asked how long the Internal Revenue Service has been looking into the finances of Studio 54. From outside Studio 54, Bob O'Brien, Channel 5 News.
It's a little bit unusual when you send 23 agents up and come tearing into a place at 9:30 in the morning.
Steve Rubell and Ian Schraeger pleaded guilty today to federal income tax evasion.
The indictment charges that on a daily basis the defendants would extract or skim from the night's receipts approximately 50% of the receipts each night that came in cash.
This afternoon, Studio 54 co-owners Steve Rubell and Ian Schraeger and their attorney, Roy Cohn, met with reporters to answer the charges.
I have faith in the courts, and, you know, we'll let time take everything. Studio 54 will function as usual.
Rubell and Schraeger were convicted and went to jail. They sold the club. In 1989, Steve Rubell died, and Ian Schraeger reinvented himself, building a hotel empire. You were once called the silent partner. Now, I don't think you're silent anymore.
Well, I am. You know, if you want to talk about the work, I can talk all day long. Cocktail party, like the part Steve enjoyed. That's why we were such good partners and friends. He enjoyed that, and, you know, when we got together, we both went to our own areas where we felt comfortable. We didn't have a division of responsibility. We both gravitated to what we each felt comfortable doing.
The boy from Brooklyn did great. You've come a long way since Studio 54.
Yeah, I'm at the happiest I've ever been. Because I love my work, I love my family. I couldn't ask for anything more. Lucky.
We're on this desk 40 years too late.
I know.
I mean, imagine if we go down to Studio 54
so
after.
Great to look at, though.
It's fascinating.
You keep thinking that maybe that'll come again, right? When we're...
It's over.
It's over.
One and done, unfortunately. That was fascinating stuff.